our Groundskeeper Chat series. I am your host, Meg Kruger, and you are joining us for a special edition 2025 Pioneers in the Field special edition episode. I had to pause there because 2025 did not roll off the tongue like it should by April. Like it still is like catching me. Like I can't believe, time moves way too quickly. But someone who has had plenty of time with their organization, I think 20 years, Andy?
We'll get into that. It's been, 20 something after a couple of different stints with the team.
Nice.
2025.
Well, we're burying the lead there, but our next guest is Andy Levy. He is the turf director with the Arizona Cardinals, and we are so happy to have him join us. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Meg. This is really cool. We're all just turf nerds, love talking turf, and love hearing about it. So
definitely.
What a privilege.
And we said right before we started recording that, these episodes, sometimes we talk a little bit about like a particular topic or we talk about like a turf practice. But these episodes are my favorite because it really is focused all about you, which, as I mentioned, is probably just something that you love to do.
Yeah, her professional specialty, talking about themselves.
Exactly. So we try and make it as painless as possible for you. And someone who's along for the ride to help with that, to take some of the pain out, is Mr. Christopher Bell, my co-host.
That's what I do. I take the pain out.
That's right. Or as I joked earlier, he's on here for HR purposes to just make sure that I don't mess up.
I've got a long list of things to talk to you about.
That's right. Just in the first 2 minutes here. So, Andy, how we always typically start these is we ask for your turf origin story. Take us way back. How did this come on your radar? How did you, first hear of turf? And then when did you have that tipping point where you were like, oh, wow, I could make a career out of this?
Yeah, kind of a unique scenario for me, and a lot of opportunities that were presented early on. Like a lot of young kids going into the summer when I was 15 years old, knew that, I wanted some walking around money. So, instead of doing what a lot of kids my age did and not going to McDonald's or one of the fast food restaurants, I found a landscape maintenance company and got a job pushing a mower. So this is virtually the only thing I've ever done is push mowers and manage grasses. Started working there over the summers and really enjoyed it. Loved being able to see, apartment complex or a nice home, the way that you leave it, better than you saw it. And, that finished product was really important to me for some reason, and enjoy that time and, quickly work my way up as a high school kid to, I'm driving a truck and I'm managing a crew, and it was really fun for me. And it was, something quick that I really knew I wanted to do. Fast forward, finished high school, went to ASU, studying geology, and I got a call from that owner of that landscape maintenance company. Said, "Hey, Andy, I had a unique scenario. I sold the company. I got offered an opportunity with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm the head turf manager here at the Arizona Cardinals. Do you want to come paint some football fields for me?" And I quickly said, "No. I've got this other journey. I've got a plan. I'm going to go be a geologist." Mm-hmm. And I've got my mind made up. And he was really persistent, and he must have known, better than I did at the time, that this was a really good fit for me, and eventually convinced me to come paint some fields. So at the time we had 3 natural grass fields, and I would come every Monday and Tuesday and paint them wall to wall, 14 hours a week, easy money, and quickly realized this is awesome. I want to do this forever, no matter what. Changed my major to urban horticulture. I had one of those moments on, the aha moment on the mower one day going, what am I doing? Yeah. I've got a tremendous opportunity here. I need to capitalize on this. I love this. This is what I want to do forever. So it got to a point where they couldn't keep me away. It was 14 hours a week. I'm pushing those part-time hours to where, we had to sit down that, you're part-time, you can only be here so many hours a day. Mm-hmm. So I made the decision to, approach my old boss at the time, Tim Peterson, and say, hey, this is what I want to do. If there's not an opportunity for me full time, what do you recommend? He said, you're in Arizona. There's a lot of opportunities. So I left. I went and went looking for another position to where, we didn't have a stadium here at the time, so it was just the training facility. So I went and looked for other opportunities. So that gave me a chance to go work for Grant Trimbuth over at the Diamondbacks.
Okay, very cool.
That really transformed what I knew working part-time at a training facility to working full-time on an MLB experience, to where we're putting that field on television every single night. So to understand that quickness, and for Grant to teach me his work ethic, and for him to show us that, we're here until the job gets done, until it's perfect. Because tomorrow we have professional athletes out here. That was crucial in my journey to understanding that, what the needs are at a training facility, to what the needs were at a professional level. Worked there for a season, had an opportunity with the San Francisco Giants following that at Scottsdale Stadium. So, got to see the importance of working on a city sense. So I worked for the city of Scottsdale then, that we managed the field for the Giants. So got to see, go from a situation with Grant to where we're working our fingers bloody to, this is at 8 hours we go home. So to see the pros and cons on those different scenarios. In the interim, I had started a deep tie and aerification company. So I ran a contracting company on the side, and I got to go diagnose fields all over town, to where people would call me when they had troubles, when it's compacted and the field is dying. And I would, many times say, before I aerate, we're going to have to do this, this, and this. So I got to see so many, different sod scenarios and grass scenarios in Arizona, and, just in my part-time when I was still working a spring training schedule. And then fast forward to 2006, when we opened State Farm Stadium. I got the call from my old boss, Tim Peterson, say, we're opening this stadium. I know your ethics. I know how you work. I want to have you out there managing the first natural grass retractable field in North America. So quickly, we jumped on that and said yes, and how excited I was to come back. I love my first experience with the team. And then since then, Tim had retired, and I had taken over the training facility, stadium, and now we have it's called Sportsman's Park. We've got 20 acres of turf, of usable turf outside the stadium that we manage as well. So, kind of bookend on either end. Started with Cardinals, and hopefully someday finish with the Cardinals.
I love that. And what really intrigued me is, with the side gig of doing the aerification and coming in and diagnosing those problems, I'm sure that also jump started a huge network for you as well, in the sense that, each problem also had a sports turf manager, or, an AD, or, somebody taking care of that field. That, did you feel like that gave you a network of resources to go forward with?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, nobody really called me when things were going great. So, I think that it gained a lot of respect there too, when, I could decline a job and say, listen, I think we need to do this, this, and this first, then we'll come back and aerate. And, again, that network is priceless to have as a field manager. Nobody's successful without an appropriate network.
Definitely. And we talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but another network that you've had the, privilege to be a part of is that Super Bowl crew, and some of the NFL turf managers that get to travel all around the world now and, set the stage for some of our favorite cultural moments. How big of a role has that played in your career, having people who are right alongside you in the trenches? Like they might be all over the country and have different problems, but you guys also have had a similar trajectory where, it might have gone from a field or a training facility, and now it's a training facility, a field, an event schedule, these $1 million assets. You guys have been able to kind of ride that wave together in a sense.
Yeah, it's crucial to be able to actually spend those days and nights working with those folks and get to know them on a personal level to where you're not guarded at all, to where I can call any one of those people now and they'll give me their honest opinion. I'll give them mine. It's priceless. And there's, hundreds of years of experience there. And we have such unique experiences with what we do. We cannot call anybody else. We cannot rely on anyone else to, put themselves in the same position that we're in. So to be able to call a Wayne Ward like I did back in the day, or to call, Travis in Kansas City, or one of those guys, and have a professional relationship as well as a friendship with them, to where, nobody's going to be, nobody's going to not be willing to want to help them.
Definitely.
It's priceless.
And are you Arizona born and raised then?
I'm claiming it. I wasn't born here, but I came here early enough to where I can claim native.
Because when you said folks, I got a little bit of like Minnesota in there, where I was like, oh, maybe he's not from Arizona.
Moved here from Minnesota when I was 5. So
you really are from Minnesota?
Maybe a little of that stuff. Maybe
you read your Wikipedia page, Shandy.
I seriously did
I have no
not.
proof you have one.
I seriously was just when he said folks. That just must be something
really?
Growing up in a house where I'm sure you got, your parents were probably from Minnesota then, or at least lived there for a good stint of time.
He knows our tells.
That's great. Well, in talking about like your upbringing and some of those interests or personality traits from childhood, what of those, looking back, do you see like, oh, that it makes sense that I ended up here? Like, these were the things that have always been a part of me, and now I've just applied them in a career that really made sense for me.
I think that probably started early on accident again. Both my parents grew up in Wisconsin, and they would ship me away when I was really young. They'd ship me away for the summers to visit with my grandparents and cousins and all those things that we would do when we were younger. And I had a tendency to just spend the entire time at my Uncle Jim Dukes' farm, to where, I'd go out there to visit all my cousins and spend the entire time working on the farm. And it wasn't work to me, from, 10, 11, 12, 13, the entire summer, I'd bale hay, I'd do field work. I'd milk cows. I learned to drive a clutch on a Massey Ferguson, spread manure when I was 11. And, something for, 11-year-old kid to see the sun rising on a field, dew on the leaves. It made a huge impression. And I knew instantly that there's no way I can work in an office. There's no way, I need to do something like this. I need to be able to see a field, turn that into hay that I put into a mow at the end of the day. And I think that work ethic started then, to where I knew I loved it. I wanted to be there. I wanted to do that in a way that I felt appropriate for me. So I think it started then. And, I do attribute a lot to my uncle teaching me what hard work was.
And do you think that is something, now that you've been in a position where you have young guys come through your crew, do you think that's something that can be taught, or is work ethic something that you have to come to the table with?
You got to have a base, but just like anything, if you have the right mindset, you're gonna seek out what you're not good at and try to get better, as a professional. So, we've had people come through here, and I'm sure you see it in every profession where that's not their strong suit, and me as a manager, I have to put people in their best position to do the jobs that they enjoy, but also give them opportunities to do those jobs that they don't enjoy, that they're not great at, to get better at. So, I think it was a path that worked for me, and it was something, I don't know if it was taught. I knew that I just loved being out there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Chris, I was leaving that window open so that you could ask a question.
You were.
I bulldozed through the first 4, so I figured I'd give you a shot.
So You've talked about your initial boss from the landscaping company, then over the Cardinals. Who are some other individuals who may have played the mentorship role for you throughout the years?
Gosh, he was instrumental. Tim Peterson, of course. Obviously, my time spent with Grant Trembeth at the D-backs, he was instrumental. I had a great relationship with the owner of the sod farm that we use, Jimmy Fox. He's a tremendous advocate for grass and for what we do, and we've had a relationship and a partnership with Evergreen Turf since we came online. One of the first partnerships with a sod company that I grow my custom grass on a custom soil, so I can, when we resod here, it's seamless from stadium, training facility, farm. So, and Jimmy looks at a lot of grass throughout the town. So, he's one of those people that I can call. He's constantly going to golf courses and sports fields, and same thing. He goes out there when there's a problem. So, he's someone that I can, hey, we burning off ryegrass quick, or you see any disease on the west side right now? So, he's been such a great asset. And again, you're going to hear this name a lot today, and as it always is. But having the privilege to work alongside Brian Johnson throughout the years, he's just the best. He's the best to ever do it. To spend thousands of hours next to him painting, and hundreds of hours next to him, backpacking, and sitting next to a campfire as a friend. He's been, a beacon for what to do right in our industry for a lot of years. A lot of people don't know this, but he is, up to this year, Brian Johnson has hosted more Cardinal games than I have hosted.
Really?
When the Cardinals came to Arizona, we didn't have a stadium deal at the time. So we played our games at ASU for 18 seasons. We're now going into our 19th season at State Farm Stadium. So, wow. Brian gets this moniker of, what a great college sports field manager. Brian had the Cardinals for 18 years, more than I did up to this season. So, he would host his university's games on a Saturday, and then we'd play there on a Sunday. So,
wow.
At the time, I was at the training facility, and I told this Brian later in life, but I didn't have duties on game day, so I would stay post game and watch him do his post game regimen every week, and just fan out on, wow, that's a professional. That's how it's done. So,
did you watch from the stands or on the field?
On the stands, yeah.
Really?
I love that.
Post game. So.
That's really neat.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's enough gassing Brian up. He's gonna make me carry his backpack. Go on.
Well, he's got one of those incredible, turf family trees. But I can imagine, you've had this incredible opportunity to be in one place for the majority of your career. How cool has it been to have people come through, your crew, and then see them go on to create their own, legacy out in the industry, or just keep working alongside you? How wonderful has that been to have that kind of role, as well as, just the day-to-day of managing the grass? Yeah,
so I get it on both ends. To where I've had a lot of my crew that's been here for over a decade. That, wow. It's what a privilege to have to find people that love what they do and do it well, and we're able to keep them growing throughout the organization. So, on that aspect, it's inspiring. And then to see, like a young kid, like we talked about, Jacob Scales, who's was on my crew for a couple of years, to see him thriving and him, showing up here really green and with a lot to learn, and understanding that and learning it throughout the process and taking that to where he's going on his journey. So, it's really cool. You feel like a turf dad sometimes when these kids go off and do their own thing. So, what a privilege.
I love that. And what are some of those philosophies, that beyond the turf maintenance or those general best practices, what are some of those philosophies you would say that you manage with, or you run your crew with, or just how you stay motivated and focused season after season?
Yeah, I think something that we kind of touched on earlier is never be too proud to reach out and ask advice, and to identify the people that you respect and you respect their opinion. Never be too proud to call them and say, hey, what did you do in this situation? What can I do to do what I do better? And on the same token, never be too proud to not pick up the phone and share what what you've learned. I'm almost, I guess, to a point in my career where I'm somewhat of a veteran in the NFL, and I'm taking more of those calls now, and it's again, what a privilege to have that opportunity to be able to take some of those calls to where I wish I could have done, and wish I did better when we opened the stadium in 2006. We were the first ever retractable field in the NFL, and there was a lot of questions that I needed answered, and I would rely on some of the guys like Wayne Ward that grew a Bermuda grass overseeded, or Steve Whiteman in San Diego, to where those guys could provide some guidance, but nobody brought the field indoors. So it was a privilege when the Raiders brought their field online, to where they've mimicked the same scenario we have. We have a retractable field. So when Zach Longernecker reached out, it was, and this was discussed with our ownership, that hey, they're reaching out. Are we good to share secret sauce just to make sure? And it was quickly answered. When football players are safe, it's good for the entire league. So yes, open door. So it's been cool to be able to help Zach with a lot of those questions that I had when we were opening up, and also being able to reach out to Zach now that he's been there and he's had a lot of these scenarios to ask his advice on. Okay, what did you do here? This is what I did. That's been something that's a two-way street now. So it's that's part of I feel any field manager success, having that network.
100%.
So Andy, when they pitched you to come back to the Cardinals and they were building a stadium with a field that retracted and went in and out, what was your first reaction?
Cool. It's the first complaint you're going to get from any field manager. We love putting on games. We love hosting football. We love hosting baseball games, or whatever your field is. But the first thing that you'll start to bellyache about is, I got a concert series this summer, and that's the first and biggest challenge that you'll have from any field manager across the board. And to eliminate that challenge from it, and to be able to have a building to where we can have endless amounts of events on the show floor, which also empowers us to have more grass events when we're not rejuvenating that field from a stadium that was on it. The day that our concert moves out, we can move the grass in and have a field event. So it complements both ends, and it's and anytime anybody has plans, or you see a artist rendering for a stadium throughout the league and they don't consider this, I'm baffled, because it's great for generating revenue for your building, and it's great for the not having to compromise the surface of your facility.
Definitely.
Really is revolutionary. It's interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's been fun.
How do you think that experience has really pushed you or helped you evolve as a professional, especially since it sounds like you were one of the first to do it, so you had to go at it alone in many ways. How do you think that helped you really evolve as a professional?
It forced me to be vulnerable and to reach out and to seek help from other professionals, and it forced me to be a little more experimental going in, where we had a formula at the training facility that worked for us, but those fields never went inside. So it forced us to think outside the box a little bit, and I think that's helped us throughout this entire process, to where if we see a challenge, it's not just this is the answer. It's we could go this way, we could go this way. Let's try and let's figure it out. And it's kind of the nature of our business a little bit, but that kind of forced our hand a little bit early on, is where we really needed to figure this out. In 2006, our first year, with construction and all the testing, the field was indoors more days than it was outdoors, and we needed to be able to explain to ownership management that this is a challenge that we got through this year, but we can't overcome all these days. And obviously a lot of that had to do with construction and making sure that everything was functioning properly. But I think that's helped us quite a bit.
And this job, we all know it's definitely more than a 9-to-5, but taking that question a little bit further, like, how has this job defined you as a person? So in the same sense that you've evolved as a professional, how has, being in a role such as yours really helped evolve you as a person as well? What qualities do you see come like on both sides that this job really defines you, who you are as well?
Our fields are almost, I say it all the time, they're like a extension of your family, to where you've got to look at the field as almost like, I wouldn't say like another child, but like, something living, breathing, dying, that you have to put in that compartment to where I can't turn my back on this. We have a 4-day weekend coming up this weekend for their Easter holiday. The team had given us a 4-day weekend graciously, and right off the bat, I call my guys at the facility, and they're already ahead of me. That I think we're going to come in Saturday, and then one of us is going to jump in on Sunday and take a look. And the same here with my crew at the stadium is it's always a field first mentality, and it's it's a blessing and a curse that you've got to look at this as somewhat of an extension of your family, and celebrate that and know how important it is.
Definitely.
What keeps your juices flowing and gets you excited after all the years of doing this as a career?
There's the obvious ones. The Saturday after painting, and we go to the 400 level. I know this is low hanging fruit, but like it's special to be able to go up there with your crew to the 400 level and look down and say, we did this. And we have the group chat, and you take a picture and you thank everybody for all their hard work over the week. And what goes along with that is the Sunday after a game and seeing how tore up the field is, to be able to transform that to Sunday morning for kickoff. It's the feeling I got when I was a kid and I mowed that lawn in the backyard, to look at a shabby yard and then leave it beautiful. It's a good feeling. And, I couldn't imagine myself turning in Excel or firing off an email and having that same feeling at another job, so,
we get real crazy with our emails over here. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty powerful to have that, to have that feeling going into a game. The typical kickoff moment that everybody talks about. It's real, and it's a really, really hard deadline that provides a tremendous amount of pressure going into it, to where they're never going to have a Monday night football game on a Tuesday because the grass isn't ready. So it's a tremendous amount of pressure met with a tremendous amount of preparation. It's a big release on game day, and it's important, and and it's nice to be a part of this. It's pretty cool, when my wife goes to the store and tells someone that what I do, or my mom wears a Sod Mom jersey to the games.
So cool.
It's
That's
pretty
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's always fun when you have something that's physical as the end of your work, and you can see it and just enjoy it. That's super special. You're pretty fortunate.
Yeah, and just week in and week out, having the opportunity to make an impact on something that, not only you and your crew is going to enjoy, but all those players, the visiting team, but then all the fans and the culture that is surrounded the NFL. How much of that really, helps fuel your fire? Just the emphasis or the culture that, we have around the NFL and what it really means to us.
It's special. It's special to be a part of. And like I said, when you're out in the public away from that and you explain to somebody and immediately they perk up and say, oh, do what? Yeah. Cool. Oh, wow. And they start asking you grass questions or, do you know Larry Fitzgerald questions or all that? People are fired up and it's a big deal. So, I tell my guys all the time, what we do is important. People really care. And it's a big deal what we do. What we do on Sunday, if we don't do our very best and somebody gets hurt, which would be tragic, that affects generations. That player's kid's kid could be affected if we take away their career. So it's a big deal in what we do. We've got a big responsibility keeping, $400 million worth of inventory safe on this day.
It's a heavy load to have on your shoulders.
Sure, right?
Definitely. Well, and that type of responsibility, like I said, also comes with the opportunity to have significant impact. And, thinking on your legacy and what you hope really resonates with others when they read this story or hear your story, what do you really hope people take away from this?
I'm really proud at the design of this field and what we've done and how we've proven we were the first to prove that we could do this, we could make this work. And again, I'm shocked when anybody would consider building a stadium and not consider this aspect of it and this design. So I feel like we took something that never been done and we did it. And to see that the Raiders had followed suit on the same design, that's pretty cool. To do something first, and I'd say we've been pretty successful at it.
Definitely. And what do you hope that people that work for you or crew members that have been alongside you for the long haul, what do you hope that they have, aside from the Sunday product, what do you really hope they take away from being able to work with you?
I think just I led by example. Mm-hmm. I'm a work first manager to where, this is a theme with any professional is, I've got a tough time delegating, especially on the game field going in. So, I like to say that I have led by example and, been the hardest working on the crew at times. And, gave them a blueprint with how to start your day and end your day.
Mm-hmm. That's the exact word that was actually in my mind when you were describing that, was like a blueprint that, if you follow these steps, we're going to be successful as a team.
Yeah. And then be able, like I said, to identify what guys are good at and let them shine there. And, on the same token, the things that they're not good at, encourage them to get better at. And, as a professional, I've identified things that I'm not good at. I'd rather be out on the mower. I would rather be painting the field instead of, firing off Excels for my budget or, various other things in the office. So, that's just part of the learning process.
Andy, you can kind of paint in Excel too with color. So it is rewarding, just so you know.
I'm good.
We're trying to justify our space.
Yeah, we are. We're trying to make ourselves feel better about our lives.
But Andy, you touched on it a little bit, but where are you in your element? Out on the field or doing turf maintenance? What practice do you feel most at home with? Where do you feel like you can just hone in and just truly be comfortable and be yourself?
Being a retractable surface, we're one of the only stadiums that gets to paint just about everything on a Saturday. We have perfect painting environment. So we don't have to worry about rain. We don't have to worry about elements outside. So we do just about all of our field paint on a Saturday. It looks crisp. It looks perfect. You paint it the day before. So that's a lot. You got a lot of crews working at one time, and to have that symphony of everything, you come in the morning and it's pretty daunting knowing you have a football game tomorrow and there's not a drop of paint on the field. It's it'll weigh on you. But to see as 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and now we've got hash marks, now we've got numbers, now I'm working on logos, and to see that come together as a symphony, and everybody, I can look at the other end of my field and see one of my guys, Tim or Adam, down there, and just give a look, and they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. They'll know exactly what needs to be done, or vice versa. They can do the same to me, and to have that all come together is. Then there's nothing like it. There's nothing better.
That's got to be a great advantage, having the same crew for so long. Everybody knows their job and they just get it done.
Yeah, exactly. 3 guys have been with me over 10 years, and they don't need any babysitting. They don't need to be told what to do, and that now they've been able to be great mentors for the younger crew and for the some of the other part-time staff.
Very cool.
It's full circle.
Definitely. I got to experience a little bit of that. I spent a day with ASU, and they must do something similar where they painted their entire field on, the Thursday before a Friday night home game. Because I think it was a Thursday before a Friday night game.
Wow.
And I was done after 2.5 hours, and I wasn't even doing any manual labor. So the fact that they started at like 5, 6 a.m. and they didn't send me the final shot of the field until about 6 p.m. But when you said symphony, that's exactly, I didn't have the word to articulate that, but that's exactly what was going on. It was all these people, doing their own thing, but to make this beautiful project come together.
Yeah, and we have a bit of a traditional look. We do Arizona on one end, Cardinals and a bird, and then the different initiative that week. So we don't change up our plan like ASU, and it's like everybody does in the Tour de World. We look forward to when ASU Grounds releases their new field look. But the thing that's not talked about, we just see the final product. What a challenge it is for them, and what a great job they do with planning that out. Obviously Josh with his artistic and graphic design background, nobody does that better. Getting it from concept to changing it every single week. Like I said, my crew knows exactly where to go. We're painting Arizona, we're painting the Cardinals. These guys are like, we have this brand new field look that we've never done before. We got to walk through this, and everybody's got to learn together. What a huge challenge that doesn't get talked about there.
And they had like 0 stencils too. They were just like freehanding, like a majority of it. It was wild to me.
It's unreal.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Tell me how hot it was too, like 104 degrees or something.
Yeah, I was dying. There was like a bathroom under the stadium that I probably spent a majority of my time in, just hiding from the sun. I don't know how you guys do it. Like, that sun is ruthless.
It's no joke. Yeah.
This was like in October, so it wasn't even, the worst of it. It was pathetic.
See, like, we're so sick. I look at a hot 104-degree day in October, and I'm like, yes, we are growing so much grass. That Bermuda is jumping out of the ground, and not even thinking about anybody's, myself included, health or safety. I'm thinking about, 104 degrees in October. Boom, we are pushing some Bermuda grass.
Yeah, I think it was 105 that day. It was like, it was something I will never forget. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's unique for sure. And we've got that on both ends. It's the challenge. One of the challenges of being a groundskeeper in Arizona, that we freeze here. We get really cold, so we've got to grow grass. Our football season runs from we start training camp at 110, and we end as low as the 20s at night at the end of season. So
wow,
yeah. So it's a unique growing conditions here for sure.
Well, in just those general misconceptions that I'm sure a fan or even a player doesn't understand what you guys might be up against, just because I would have never thought that you guys, when you said freezing, I was like, well, come on, we're from Ohio, but 20 degrees, that's no joke.
Yeah, serious. Yeah, and I think that's part of our job is just to the anonymity of it. I don't want anybody talking about me on Monday. So as long as nobody's talking about what we did, and an occasional, wow, it looks nice down there, and that's it. I say it all the time. As long as nobody's talking about the kicker or the groundskeeper, we did our jobs.
Yep. Job well done. Mm-hmm. All right, Andy. So last question for you. Who are you outside of the gig? Like, what are the things that, recharge you when you're able to step away and, bring you back? You mentioned backpacking a little bit. But, who are you really away from work?
That's that same kid that wanted to be outside all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't have a recharge moment where I'm sitting on the couch watching the Masters. I'm out. We're active. Me and my wife Melissa and our son Jaden. We're up in the mountains. We enjoy traveling. We've been traveling with our son Jade for since he was born. He's been all over the world. So we love to travel whenever we can. I do a bike packing trip every summer. So
very cool.
Me and a group of buddies pick about 500 miles where we'll live off the bikes and ride bikes up mountains and see different parts of the world. We've gone from Astoria, Oregon to LA. We've done Canada, north to south, through Yellowstone. Yeah.
Wow.
You're a different breed. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Your vacation is, let's take it up a few notches.
Yeah. So check us out. Spandex Amigos. Spandex Amigos. Check us out on Insta.
I love that.
I think we got incredible. Like 20 followers.
Nice.
20 dedicated followers, though, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are some of your favorite places that you've been able to go to with the family?
Portugal was special.
Okay.
The wife loves Italy. Croatia was unique. Indonesia was unbelievable. We had family in Australia, so the time we spent with the Mac family in Australia was unbelievable. So, like I said, we try to get our money's worth. Somebody say a lot. I'm getting my money's worth out of this life.
I love that. That's incredible. The places you've been able to go. Where did you go in Italy?
Sicily. Started in Sicily and then Naples. Sorry.
Okay. Because Chris knows that this is my specialty to make it about myself. But I did Rome, Cinque Terre, and then Florence. I think that was last year we did that trip.
Yeah, so we did get up to Rome and Florence on the same trip as well.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. Yeah, I have 2 sons right now. And we try to do everything in our power to go as many places before they required their own seat on a plane. So we snuck Italy in there. And it was really probably the worst 9 hours of my life on that flight.
Try Australia.
Yeah. Ooh. My husband wants to do Tokyo coming up. And I was like, that's 14 hours trapped with a child that I don't even like being in the same room with for 15 minutes. What are you thinking?
Well, teaching me how my son's an incredible traveler. He's like I said, he's been all over the world and he's good with it. Like I said, we've been taking him since he was young.
And how old is he now?
He's 22 now.
Okay. So you really started him. So do I have to wait 22 years until I can cash in on the good behavior, or when do I start seeing that?
I don't know. We might have got really lucky. He's always been a good traveler and a great kid and a better person. So,
might have something to do with you if I had to take any bets on that. You and your wife, I'm sure.
Yeah, we got to give mom some credit too.
Well, that's also my second specialty, is always turning it back to remind everyone that the real MVP of the story is the partner of the groundskeeper.
Oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, she's the same.
And truly. Well, Andy, Chris, did you have any lingering questions?
Yeah. So, Andy, it doesn't sound like you ever thought of anything else other than working outside, but pretend you didn't have this job. What would you be in this world?
What a terrible, awful thought.
I know. That's one. I'm never going to have an answer for this.
It would be something outside. It would be something that, I'm working with my hands. Again, when I was 10, I thought I wanted to be a farmer. So, it may be something in that vein, maybe, a forest firefighter or something in that respect, to where,
Cool.
Again, not firing off Excels and emails all day.
Really give Excel a bad press today.
It does a good job on its own.
I get you. Being outside, doing something, it gives you rewarding experience. It sounds awesome.
And that was Uncle Jimmy Dukes. Is that?
Yes, yeah, it was. Yep.
Okay. So a lot of credit goes to him giving you that, but also your parents for, I always credit my parents. They sent me away to summer camp like every summer, which in some vein, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so wonderful. Like, how did they, suffer through those weeks without me? But also very selfless of them to give me that experience and gain independence and, discover the things that I liked. But the same goes for your parents giving you that opportunity to spread your wings in a sense.
Yeah, totally. And those are such formidable years in those ages, where, trying to figure out who you are as a person.
Yeah. And I always tell Chris this, I'm like, you put an S before mother, and that's the type of mom I am. I'm a smother. So I'm going to maybe I should take a page out of someone else's book, and I'm going to have to give them some space to grow.
Yeah. Well, we did our share of smothering too.
Good. Well, Andy, thank you so much for the time today. Like I said, when we first started this was, across the board, 5 stars, yes, in your department. So I'm so glad that we were able to have you on, and we look forward to helping tell your story through this campaign and in many more years with the Cardinals organization for you.
Excellent. What a
bookends,
privilege.
Start and begin.
Yeah,
or this
exactly.
Begin and end.
Hopefully, huh?
Well, thank you again, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.